The night it happened, nobody in that small desert saloon had any idea who she was. To them, she looked like just another traveler stopping for a drink, someone passing through a town where the dust never settled and tempers never cooled. But beneath her quiet presence was a truth so explosive, so unexpected, that the moment it surfaced, it would leave every man in that room frozen in regret. What city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about extraordinary people. Her name was Lena Hart, and the Marine who laid a hand on her would remember her for the rest of his life, because she was not just a woman traveling alone. She was not just a soldier on leave. She was not even the junior enlisted airman her plain clothes suggested. She was an Undercover Special Forces operative, and she had been the top rank hand-to-hand combatant in her division for 7 straight years. Yet nobody in that bar knew a thing, not at first. Lena had come to the desert town of Red Mesa for reasons she never discussed. Officially, she was on leave. Unofficially, she had been placed under deep cover for an operation that required absolute invisibility. She dressed differently, carried herself differently, and practiced the quiet art of blending into places most people overlooked. She chose that saloon because it was the kind of place nobody asked questions. The kind of place where stories were told in low voices, drinks were strong, and the world outside didn't seem to matter. She slipped inside, chose a seat at the corner end of the bar, and ordered nothing more than a glass of water. Her mission required sobriety, clarity, and silence. But that night, silence was the one thing she wouldn't get. Across the room, a group of Marines had just come back from a training exercise in the nearby desert. They were dusty, loud, half-tired, and half-drunk, celebrating the end of maneuvers that had left them sore and sunburned. Most of them kept to themselves, laughing, telling stories, bragging like Marines often do. But one among them stood out, Sergeant Blake Riker, a man built like a wall, with a reputation for being the toughest in his unit. His temper had carved a path long before he walked into that bar. People stepped aside when he passed, not because he demanded it, but because they knew better, except Lena didn't step aside. And that, Riker would later say, was his first mistake. She felt his presence before he even said a word. The shift in the air, the heavy steps, the sudden drop in conversation around her. It was the kind of tension a seasoned operator senses instinctively. She kept her eyes forward, her breathing steady, her posture relaxed but ready. Riker's voice cut through the room. Well, looks like we've got ourselves a quiet one. Lena didn't respond. Riker didn't like that. He moved closer, pulled out the stool next to her, and sat down with the kind of confidence that came from being feared. He looked her up and down, assuming, judging, placing her into whatever box he thought she belonged in. You're not from around here, are you? He said. Still, she didn't answer. Silence was part of her training. Silence kept her alive. But to Riker, silence was disrespect. He smirked, leaned closer, and tapped her arm. A small tap. But enough? You deaf or just rude? She turned her head slightly and gave him a look so calm it infuriated him. A look that didn't challenge him, didn't fear him, didn't even acknowledge him as a threat. It was the kind of look a lion gives to a barking dog. Riker's jaw tightened, and that's when he made the mistake that would change everything. He grabbed her wrist hard. The room shifted. The bartender froze. The other Marines stood, but none moved. They had seen their sergeant lose his temper before, but nothing had prepared them for what would happen next. Lena's eyes lifted slowly from the glass of water. She spoke for the first time, her voice low and even. Let go. Her tone wasn't angry. It wasn't afraid. It was a warning wrapped in restraint. Riker laughed in her face. Aw, sweetheart, you're gonna make me. And then he squeezed harder. The bartender started to say something, but Lena moved before a word left his mouth. She didn't stand. She didn't pull back. She didn't shout. She simply rotated her wrist. slid her hand free with a maneuver so smooth in practice it looked effortless, and placed 2 fingers on a pressure point inside Riker's forearm. The Marine's knees buckled. He gasped. Breath ripped from his lungs. Pain exploding through his arm. He stumbled back. The entire saloon went silent, but Lena wasn't done. Not yet. People would later swear they didn't even see her move. One moment she was seated calmly. The next she stood in front of Riker with a posture so composed it felt unreal. She didn't raise her hands. She didn't square off. She just existed with an intensity that made even the drunken Marine sober instantly. Riker, pride wounded and temper blazing, lunged at her. It was instinct, stupidity, ego. A man unable to accept humiliation in front of his peers. Swung. She breathed, and his fist hit nothing but air. She stepped inside his swing, placed her palm on his chest, and pushed. Just one simple push. A push backed by perfect balance, perfect leverage, and the kind of training most soldiers never even witness. Riker flew backward, not stumbled, not tripped. Flew. He crashed against the table, sending drinks and chairs scattering across the room. His Marines rushed toward him, ready to pull him away or jump in, but Lena raised one finger. Just one. Don't, she said. And they froze. Every single one of them. Riker struggled to stand, clutching his chest, confusion twisting his face into something almost childlike. He had been in bar fights. He had fought in the field. He had taken hits from men twice his size and never gone down like that. But this woman, she had dropped him in 2 moves. The bartender found his voice. "Ma'am, are you okay?" She nodded once. Riker, breathing heavily, glared at her. "What? What are you?" He growled. Her answer changed the room. "Someone who gave you a chance to walk away." From there, the intensity only grew. Riker demanded to know who she really was. The Marines argued among themselves, torn between defending their sergeant and admitting what they all saw, a woman whose presence did not match her disguise. Gradually, the story deepened. Lena revealed pieces of her past not by choice, but because Riker's stubbornness forced her to explain enough to de-escalate. She told him she had served longer than all of them combined. She told him she had undergone training most branches didn't even acknowledge publicly. She told them she wasn't undercover for fun. She was mid-mission, and her silence wasn't disrespect. It was survival. The Marines fell silent. Riker's face drained of color as realization sank in, but Lena wasn't finished. The confrontation forced memories she had buried long ago to rise again. Memories of missions that wore on her soul. Memories of friends lost. Sacrifices made. Secrets kept. She spoke of what strength really meant. What discipline cost. What restraint required. Riker, the man who once believed himself the toughest Marine in his unit, listened like a student before a master. By the time the truth surfaced fully, the room looked different. The Marines looked different. Even Riker looked different, because when she finally did the last piece of her identity, the one thing she had never planned to reveal, every man in that room felt the weight of their ignorance. "I'm a Special Forces operative," she said. "Rank classified. Unit classified. Mission classified. And until tonight, my presence here was invisible. You have no idea how lucky you are that I chose courtesy over force." The silence after that was almost reverent. Not fear. Respect. Deep. Humbling respect. Riker swallowed hard and lowered his head. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Truly. She believed him. She nodded once, took her glass of water, and prepared to leave. But before she walked out, she said something none of them would ever forget. Strength isn't measured by who you can hurt. It's measured by who you protect. Riker carried those words for years. When Lena stepped out into the night, something in the air felt lighter. The desert breeze brushed against her face, carrying with it the echoes of the confrontation she wished hadn't happened. But sometimes, she knew fate puts us exactly where we must be, not for ourselves, but for others. Riker later sought her out to thank her again, not because he feared her, But because she had taught him a lesson he didn't know he needed. A lesson about humility, about unseen battles, about the quiet warriors who walk unnoticed among us. Lena never told him her real name, not her rank, not her mission. She disappeared as quietly as she arrived, returning to a world ordinary people never see. But in that small desert saloon, on that unforgettable night, she changed the course of many lives with nothing more than restraint, strength, and truth. What did this story make you feel? Where are you watching from? Subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more real stories that heal the heart.